Hey everybody, what's going on? Hexlex here. Got another Master Duel video for you all. So today we're coming back to our Dragon Link deck, but you might have noticed that I've made quite a few changes this time around. I have drastically cut the deck down, down from 60 all the way to just 40 cards. It's been quite a while since I've played Dragon Link at only 40 cards, but as I was going to play the deck once again, I wanted to come back to it after I hit Master Rank, just because I really like the deck, but I'm definitely not as good with it as I am with some of the other decks that I prefer to ladder with, so just wanted to make sure I got to Master 5, and then from there you can't D-rank, so it's like, well, there's no harm in using Dragon Link. Although, I will say that I had quite a bit of a good run, and I've not played another deck this season where more people will just concede more readily. Like, there were so many games. There was literally like 5 or 6 wins I had in a row where I would literally just like summon Starliege Seyfert and then my opponent would concede. Or like I would activate Chaos Space, they would Ash Blossom, I'd call by it, they conceded. Again, literally had 5 or 6 games in a row that went like that. So Dragon Link is definitely one of those decks that apparently people just do not want to sit through the combos so badly enough that they'll concede at the first sign of a threat. So who knows, it might have actually made for some easier laddering if I had switched to this sooner. But when I came back to this deck, I was looking at it and I was like, you know, I've been playing Dragon Link as a 60-card grass build for quite a while now, but I don't know if it's been the case, I'm just now noticing, or it's just like this particular iteration of Dragon Link, now that we have like the Bystials and stuff, but it doesn't seem like grass is actually all that needed. I mean, it's not ever needed. Like 40-card Dragon Links have been good, but I don't know, for whatever reason this time around I noticed, like, you know, this deck, like, it's not that it doesn't, you know, it's not that it gets hurt by the milling. Of course, then, you know, grass wouldn't be good at all, but it definitely doesn't need it at all. So I decided to trim it down to 40 and see how I like the deck, and I actually like where it is. It's still very consistent, even more consistent now that we are down to 40 cards. And yeah, like I was saying earlier, the milling a bunch of cards with grass, well, it's definitely not bad for this deck. It's not like it's not super duper helpful either. It's not like zombies, for example, where like you know, you very much get like a whole lot more setup. You have like access to many more effects from a grass mill, whereas with Dragon Link, it's like you might get 1 or 2 additional effects off of a grass, but again, without too much benefit. We are down to trying a 40-card deck here. So a couple of notable cuts. We are only playing 2 Rokket Tracer instead of 3, although we are still playing 3 Quick Launch because this is an insanely good card. This is easily just like the best card in the deck, and it's not once per turn. So 3 Quick Launch, but only the 2 Tracer. We're only on 1 Recharger as well. We're also only on 1 Collapserpent. I would ideally like to have second copies of these cards and also a 3rd Tracer, but again, I want to keep it at 40. This is definitely a deck that doesn't mind being at like 45 cards because it's overall still a very consistent deck between, you know, opening Starliege Seyfert for plays, Chaos Space for plays, Quick Launch for plays. Depending on your hand, sometimes Tracer, just opening that with something else relevant can be plays. The Bystials also provide a lot of really good plays as well. Bystial Lubellion is particularly great. We're playing both Branded Brigade and Beast to take very good advantage of Lubellion, placing down some of those continuous branded spell and trap cards. Otherwise, I mean, it's pretty much everything you would expect to see, everything you need for the combo, and a few things you don't, namely the Rokket Synchron. Although the main Dragon Link combo line doesn't really use it, it's still an excellent card to have. It's good for follow-up level 8 plays, potentially. It's good for making the Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, so again, not needed, but you definitely like to have it. Oh, Absorouter is another card I'd ideally like to have a second copy of, because opening your 1 copy can be a little bit awkward. This wants to be sent from the deck to the graveyard off of Dragon Ravine, but you know, if you open it, then it's not like you don't have plays, you just have to get a lot more creative, which is definitely where I struggle with Dragon Link. Like, I can follow the dedicated combo line, you know, that ends you on Borrelend and Borreload, as well as potentially some other stuff, but when you have to get creative and like flexible beyond that, that's where it gets a little like, oh. But I feel like excuse me, I feel like it's like the universal Dragon Link experience, right, where you do your turn 1 combo, you end, and then of course 5 seconds after you end your turn you realize how you could have made the play more efficiently or added another combo piece. That just seems like it's a universal Dragon Link experience from what I've seen. But yeah, as far as the extra deck goes, again, all pretty standard fare stuff. I guess the most out there things I'm playing here, which might not seem very out there, are Accesscode and Baronne de Fleur. Believe it or not, there's a lot of Dragon Link decks that do not play these two extra cards. I noticed a lot of people favor the Triple Burst Dragon, which is a Link 3. I can go ahead and show you real quick. It's going to be this one here. I've noticed a lot of people tend to favor this card, but it doesn't seem, I don't know, unless there's something I'm missing about it, it doesn't seem particularly great to me, to be honest. I do think I have one game where I was trying it that we might see here, if I recall correctly, but yeah, I did play it in the extra deck for a little while, just never really found myself summoning it, and when I did, it didn't seem particularly useful, but again, I could also just be missing what makes the card so good. Wouldn't doubt that. So yeah, if you in the comments know a little bit more about Triple Burst than I do, definitely feel free to chime in there. But I'm playing the access code over that just to, again, find lethal more easily sometimes, especially going second, of course. It's not hard to, like, sync for Chaos Ruler and then, you know, Link climb up to an access code and then bring back the Chaos Ruler, and that's 8,000 damage right there. So I really like having access code for that reason. I also really do like having the Baron in the deck. One thing you do have to be mindful of, though, is that she's wind, so if you try to summon her after using Rokket Tracer's effect, well, you can't. And again, might see a misplay relating to that in one of these games. I know I did it at some point while I was playing this deck. I just don't remember if I end up keeping that game or not, but alright, I think that's going to go ahead and do it. Everything I wanted to talk about the list here. Now let's break it down card by card and then we'll look at some games. So we're on 1 Rokket Synchron, 3 Maxx, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 2 White Dragon Wyverburster, 1 Black Dragon Collapserpent, 2 Rokket Tracer, 1 Rokket Recharger, 3 Starliege Seyfert, 1 Bystial Magnmahut, 3 Bystial Saronir, 1 Bystial Druiswarm, 2 Bystial Baldrake, 1 Absorouter Dragon, 1 Chaos Dragon Levianeer, 3 the Bystial Lubellion, 3 Chaos Space, 1 Dragon Ravine, 1 Boot Sector Launch, 1 Branded Regained, 3 Quick Launch, 2 Called by the Grave, and then 1 Branded Beast is going to round out the main deck there. For the extra deck, we're on 1 Borreload Savage Dragon, 1 Chaos War, the Chaotic Magical Dragon, 1 Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, 1 Baronne de Fleur, 1 Guardragon Pisty, 2 Striker Dragon, 1 Hieratic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres, 1 Dragunity Knight Romulous, 1 Dillingerous Dragon, 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Dharc the Dark Charmer Gloomy, 1 Knightmare Unicorn, 1 Accesscode Talkder, and then finally 1 Borrelend Dragon. That's going to be our list. Now let's look at some games. Alright, so our first opponent is going to be on Tearlaments. And they might have been playing a few branded cards as well. I kind of just glanced at the list there. But I saw a Gamma Seal too. I think we actually see that in the duel here as well. But going first, definitely a bit of an interesting hand, opening all 3 of our Saronirs and a Baldrake. But we did get the Chaos Space, and that is definitely enough to get started with our plays here. We do also, by discarding the Saronir, get the effect to set up a Lubellion in our graveyard as well, which is definitely very nice. We definitely do not mind discarding Saronir for Chaos Space when possible, so gonna use the Wyverburster and the Striker Dragon. The Chainlink order actually really depends on your hand. Usually when you're activating simultaneous surge effects like that, it's usually better, generally speaking, to chain block one over the other, but with Dragon Link, particularly with Striker Dragon and Wyverburster / Collapserpent, again, it's very hand dependent. Here I value the extender of the Collapserpent a little bit more than the Boot Sector launch, so that tends to be the case most of the time, but again, it is very situationally dependent. But it doesn't really matter here because everything is resolving. We get to go for Romulous, getting the Ravine. Ravine's going to set up the Absorouter in the graveyard, which adds the Tracer. Now we play the Boot Sector launch over the Ravine. Boot Sector launch is going to put down the Tracer. We also get to use Chaos Space to get a draw here, although to be fair, I should have done this after using the Rokket Tracer effect, so that way I can make sure that I get the Recharger out of my deck there. Although I guess in that case, if I draw on Recharger, I could have just gotten Synchron, and I think it ultimately... No, we need the Rokket Recharger in the graveyard, that's right. So, I mean, this is all at this point pretty standard, fair stuff as far as, like, you know, the plays we're making here. I am actually doing something a little bit off the cuff here, throwing in this Branded Regained. I actually should have done this a little bit sooner in the combo line, to make sure that I get my draw off of banishing a card, but we'll still have monsters get banished at some point during this turn, so it's not that big of a deal. But now using Striker to pop the Dillingerous we just made, to add back the Recharger. Recharger then gets back the Tracer. Dillingerous summons itself, and then Dillingerous will banish itself as well. So we're just going to go ahead and use the Branded Regained on that there. So we get to put that back and draw a card, and we get a quick launch. It's a very, very good draw, actually. Alright, so here I end up making the Borreload, but I will say that was actually a little bit of a potential misplay. What I could have done is I actually could have made Chaos Ruler instead, and then I would have gotten Excavate, set up some stuff in the graveyard, and then I could have activated Quick Launch to get the Synchron and made the Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, which would have been an Omni-Negate like Borreload Savage Dragon, but I would have had the extra Excavate, and I also would have had the extra Chaos Roar body to bring back as well. Could have like potentially used that with Lubellion to make an IP here, but... Oh yeah, this is where I make the misplay. Yeah, that was me thinking I could make Baron, but no, due to Tracer I was locked in Dharc, so I'm going to be forced to make an IP as well. So yeah, I mean, we misplayed a little bit at the end there, but ultimately still ending on a board of 2 negates, Borrelend, and the Borreload, as well as the IP. We have a Baldrake and Ash Blossom in hand as well. But let's just start out with a Harpy's Feather Duster, although, fun fact, Borreload Savage Dragon does not actually need the monster equipped to negate. It just needs the counters, which it gets when it's summoned. So even with that monster gone, I can still negate with the Borreload here. So I'm going to negate the Rhino Heart as well as the Shiren here. Just negating both those to make sure my opponent doesn't get anything set up. Indeed, opponents can move straight to battle phase. I'm going to allow that. I don't want to use my Knightmare Unicorn right now, so that's fine. I'd rather keep the Baldrake in hand to summon and then potentially use later. Go to top deck, you get another quick launch because I'm just the luckiest player in the world. But I don't even really end up needing it, honestly. Gonna just go ahead and sync for a Baronne de Fleur. I'll pop the Rhino Heart, even though I know my opponent has a Shiren in hand. That does actually end up forcing the Soliac, which is kind of what I hoped would happen. So I'll just negate the Soliac with the Borreload here. And then pop the Rhino Heart. If my opponent wants to use Rhino Heart's effect, they're more than welcome to. I'll just negate it with the Baron here. Just making sure I have lethal set up. At this point, I'm not afraid of my opponent's back row. It's either a crime they can't use, an imperm, or something, yeah, irrelevant. It could have potentially been Super Poly. That actually would have been really bad to fuse the Borreload and the Borrelend for a Garura, so taking a little bit of a chance, but there's not really much I could have done if it was Super Poly, so ultimately just going to clear and go for lethal. Hope that's enough, and it is. So beautiful. We have that game down. Let's go straight into our next one here. Next duel is going to be against Melfi Goaty, which might not seem like too threatening of a deck, but you know, they are on dimensional shifters and a macros, and I believe a dimensional fissure or two as well. So we do definitely have to be a bit concerned in that regard. But thankfully, we get to go first before our opponent's really able to establish any of those banishing cards. So we do still get to set up our graveyard here. Yeah, trying to go second against like macro or fissure. I mean, this particular list, I don't know that it even really has an out to those cards at all. You just kind of hope you can play through them the best you can. Although that does ultimately prove to be futile most of the time. Opponent is going to imperm our Striker Dragon, so no Boot Sector launch for us. But we do have a quick launch in hand, so it shouldn't matter too much actually. Although it will matter once our opponent drops this Bystial Magnmahut. So beforehand, the quick launch actually made it so that the negating of Striker Dragon didn't matter. What we could have done is simply special Wyverburster, gone for Romulous, add Ravine, and then we don't even really need to use Ravine's effect. We can just use quick launch for the Tracer. Tracer blow up Ravine, Tracer summon Recharger, boom boom, Pisty and Striker Dragon. Continue the combo line from there. But because we can't summon this Wyverburster, now we have to get a little bit creative. I'm going to utilize my quick launch here to summon Tracer. Tracer pops Striker. And then I'm going to pull out a Rokket Synchron from the deck. I'll then also special this Bystial Saronir here. Gonna link those two off for the IP Masquerena. Special a Wyverburster to go with my Tracer to now sync for an 8. Gonna make a Chaos Ruler now. I might have actually done that in a more optimal order, but I think I still did it alright here. Alright, Chaos Ruler looks like it's finding either Baldrake or Recharger. I'm gonna grab the Baldrake here. Chaos Space effect. Let's go ahead and get an extra draw by putting back our Collapserpent. That also makes our Wyverburster a little bit better as well. I can sack off the Chaos Ruler for a Bystial Lubellion and then use that to activate this Branded Regained. before summoning Chaos Dragon Levianeer. Now with Levianeer, I actually specifically banished all Dharc monsters. That way I can shuffle back one of the cards in my opponent's hand per the Levianeer's second effect here. I'm also going to use Branded Regained on specifically Rokket Recharger, so that way my Tracer is live for the next turn as well. And we get an extra draw, of course, to boot as well. Always welcome. Get another quick launch there. Levianeer is going to shuffle back one of their cards, and that's going to just about do it for me. I did draw a quick launch. I could have potentially summoned some more things, but I ultimately don't think it would have led to much more of a, notable board state. So, opponent's going to Lava Golem me, set a card, and then pass. Interesting line from them there. I'll take the damage during my standby phase, and then use quick launch for the Recharger because I already have the Tracer in my hand. Opponent's going to flip a macro, but it is much too late for the Macro Cosmos to matter at this point. I am going to sync off these two for the Borreload Savage Dragon. I really just want to get an Omni Negate effect up, just in case my opponent has something tricky left in their hand. They do actually have a Druiswarm here, but I have this Baldrake, so I can just go ahead and fire that off targeting the same card, and they're not able to summon it. Alright, so with what I have on field, I already have enough for lethal, but I can also just go ahead and throw down, this quick launch, the Saronir, any number of things to add to this board. I was going to try to go for a Baron there to add, but, opponent ended up conceding as I have lethal already. So there is that duel there. Let's go ahead and go straight to the next one. So this time we're up against Bystial Branded Despia. It's funny, I see, I guess it's mostly on the subreddit, but I'll see people online constantly talking about, how good Branded Bystial is, and, how, ridiculous it is with the new support, and even if you Asher Branded Fusion, they can sometimes still play through it. It's ridiculous, and it's the deck is good, but, I don't see people freaking out about sprites in nearly the same way, which I think is much better, but I do think it's a better deck than Branded Despia. But anyway, we're going second. Thankfully, our opponent only opened up a couple of back row here. They are going to use the call by on the Bystial Lubellion. That is completely fine with me, as I have many other graveyard-based effects that I want to activate here. They also have an Ash Blossom for my Starliege Seyfert, but I also happen to open the Chaos Space as well, so rip opponent. They got very unlucky here, or rather, I got very lucky. I managed to play through their responses here. The Bystial Lubellion, it's interesting. I think most of the time it's actually right not to negate it with something like Ash Blossom or Call By. It's usually bait in not just this deck, but pretty much any deck I play Bystial Lubellion in. It's very rare that I'm activating it and I need the effect to resolve. I'm usually activating it just to kind of see if my opponent has a response for it or not. Of course, the Bystial monsters that it searches are good to have. It's not like it's only used to bait out hand traps, but I will say that a lot of the time, and I think my opponent had every right to call by the Bystial Lubellion here because they already had an Ash Blossom in hand as well. But if that was my opponent's only piece of disruption, then I definitely would have disagreed with them shotgunning it against the Bystial Lubellion. If you want a good choke point for call by against this combo line, actually that point right there at the Absorouter, if you banish and negate the Absorouter, then the Dragon League player has no Rokket cards in hand, nothing to summon off of the boot sector launch, and that's pretty much the end of their play there. Opponent does have a Super Poly, and they actually have a really good target for it in the form of Borreload Furious Dragon, so this opponent's actually going to end up disrupting me very, very well here with that last back row. I'm going to ultimately pivot into Knightmare Unicorn to more or less force the effect of Borreload Furious, because Borreload Furious can destroy a monster as a quick effect. It would have been pretty much impossible to set up, any kind of a meaningful board under it. Also, the fact that it has 3k attack is definitely pretty scary as well. But by summoning the Knightmare Unicorn, I at least force my opponent to, utilize their Borreload Furious now, and I can set up a Bystial Lubellion in my hand alongside this Ash Blossom before passing back. So I know my opponent is in top deck mode. Thankfully, they didn't top deck much of anything. They're just going to set one card before passing. But I also know that, I've got this Ash Blossom here, so even if they had had a Branded Fusion, I could have pretty easily countered it. Here I'm going to use the Bystial Lubellion. I also managed to top deck a Chaos Space, which is really, really good. use my other Starliege Seyfert to wheel the Lubellion back to my hand, pitch it for the Chaos Space. I can use Chaos Space to get an extra draw. Summon out the Magnmahut as well as the Saronir, and then I can also throw down the Levianeer, pop my opponent's last back row. Was the plan until they revealed yet another Super Poly, so that's definitely annoying to say the least. They get to go for a Garura and they'll get an extra draw here, but you know, again, it is what it is. So here's the Levianeer. I banish both Dark and Light, so I get to destroy up to 2 cards. I'll destroy the Garura. I'll give them a draw as well. I'm not going to negate that. I did misplay here. I always forget that Levianeer can't attack the turn you summon it. So I should have done this, you know, during main phase 1. Sacked for Lubellion. Then I could have done 2500, which actually would have mattered here. But, well, could have mattered. My opponent's going to concede at this point. So it ultimately doesn't end up mattering. But it very easily could have mattered there. So, yeah, that's going to do it for this duel. We, of course, do have one more left. So I'll go straight into it now. And this last game is going to be up against Labyrinth. I wonder if this person is getting ready for the new support coming out here soon. Or it could just be a diehard Labyrinth fan. But either way, we get to take the first turn here. So that's pretty nice. This Maxx is not going to end up doing much of anything this duel. We did fortunately open a Bystial Lubellion to accompany our baby Chaos Dragons here. So we do have a live hand. I'm going to use Lubellion to grab myself a Magnmahut. Banish Lubellion for the Collapserpent. Collapserpent goes into the Striker Dragon. Now, in this case, I'm actually going to chain block the Striker Dragon effect, because if my opponent does have Ash Blossom for Collapserpent, that's fine. I already have a Wyverburster in my hand, so I don't actually need the search here. That's kind of what I meant earlier when I said that the order in which you chain block that Striker Dragon and maybe Chaos Dragon is going to very much depend on what your hand looks like, what you do and don't have access to. Opponents save their imperm for my Romulous, which is actually a pretty good call, honestly. So no Dragon Ravine for me. As you can see, that's going to just straight up end my turn, as I don't have access to Rokket Dragons. This is what I was talking about earlier as well, how if you cut off access to their Rokket monsters, at this point in the combo, Chaos Dragon has no follow-up. So opponent's going to Extravagance set 4, exactly what you want to see when you fire off a Maxx in the draw phase. But it's ultimately going to be fine. Going to summon this Magnmahut, activate the effect to get a search later, special Wyverburster. Going to link the Wyverburster and the Romulous off. To grab myself a Knightmare Unicorn, I want to start picking off these back rows here. I'm also going to look to use an Accesscode Talkder line to go for lethal here, ideally. Opponent's got an Imperm from my Knightmare Unicorn, but we did at least manage to force it, so there's one card gone. And now we're going to link off the Magnmahut and the Knightmare Unicorn and go for the Accesscode, like I mentioned. Feeling pretty good about that because I got rid of an Imperm, but unfortunately, after the resolution of my Accesscode's effect, my opponent has another Imperm, so I'm going to special Levianeer, banishing both Light and Dark to pop my opponent's last 2 cards, which are Evenly and Welcome Labyrinth. I'm going to summon the Saronir, attack with that and the Accesscode. Opponent's got another Evenly, so I'll just go ahead and get rid of the Accesscode and then pass back to my opponent, grabbing a Druiswarm. So now that I've seen the Welcome Labyrinth, I know that it is a Labyrinth deck. I know that they're in top deck mode, so yeah, they're just going to set a card before passing. Drawing for a turn, I get another Saronir, so I shouldn't have too hard of a time finding lethal here. I'm going to summon a Druiswarm. My opponent has this Terrors of the Overroot in response, which is actually a very, very good counter in this case, as it gets rid of both my Saronir and it sets up the Levianeer as well. But my Saronir going to the graveyard actually is going to allow me to set up Lubellion. My opponent actually could have very easily survived this turn under a lot of circumstances, but I happen to have very good way out of that and to force lethal anyway. I get to use Saronir to send Lubellion. Lubellion sacks the face down Levianeer to summon itself, and then because I top deck another Bystial, I can just summon that, move to battle phase, and smack my opponent for lethal there. Alright, so there are those duels. Hope you all enjoyed them very much. Again, Dragon Link, I had a lot of fun playing. And again, playing at 40 cards, I think actually is probably going to ultimately be more optimal than 60. But that's going to go ahead and do it. Let's move now to our outro. Alright everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the very end of the video like this. That means a whole lot to me. Not just personally, but it's also a great way of supporting the channel as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other means, you can of course feel free to comment and or subscribe right here on YouTube. I'm always looking to the comments section. You guys leave some pretty awesome feedback as far as like constructive criticism goes when it comes to deck building, gameplay, channel content, all that stuff. So feel free to leave your opinion down there. I will be sure to take a look at that there. And then subscribing is going to be the best way to get notifications of when these videos drop. That does happen every day, by the way, so if you're looking for daily Master Duel content, you've come to the right place. And there are more places where you can get some daily Master Duel content. If you check out the description below, follow the top link over to my Patreon page. There for just $5 a month, which is as much as you pay for a booster pack, you'll find a lot more value than a pack full of filler over there. We've got some previews for content upcoming here on the channel. We've got some exclusive games that are only posted over on Patreon over there. We've got some Q&As, and then you can also have your name featured in this lovely credit sequence where I thank all of the people who are helping contribute over there on Patreon. It's a huge support to the channel, and it really means a lot as well. So thank you everyone who is donating that is featured here on screen. And again, you know, it's not just a pure donation, you do get some more daily Master Duel content over there just for being a part of the Patreon. But I think that's about all the time that I have for today's video. Once again, I just want to thank you so very much for sticking all the way to the end of the video. Again, it just means a lot as I do put a decent amount of work into getting these videos out every single day. But that's about all the time that I've got for now. So without further ado, this is Maxx. I'm signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day.